Hello friends, this is Gaurav Goyal from Lamoksh Investments. 1st February 2022 is going to be a crucial day. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will be presenting the budget proposals. So it's always an important event. It's always an important day. However, in last few years, the importance of budgetary proposals has diminished quite a bit. So these days, government announces proposals and policy decisions right throughout the year and does not wait for annual budget day to make the policy announcements. Hence, it's one of the events and but not the only event. So, however, I must also add that it's an important day, and one we must not forget the fact that there are certain policy statements and the intention of the government that comes into picture. So we cannot ignore budget, yet it is not the only policy statement of the year by the government of India. So coming back to this budget, what can we expect? So first of all, we really need to think in a way finance minister is probably thinking. Let us try and understand what are the challenges that she's facing. First of all, she's staring at huge expectation from all concerned, whether it is corporate India, whether it is international theme, whether it is Indian economy, whether it is Aam Aadmi, whether it is the upcoming election and hence politics. So everyone wants something. Unfortunately, we have limited resources in hand and the demands are way, way higher. Another important, crucial challenge is the fact that we are on a rising inflationary trend. Prices are rising everywhere, globally and in India. At the same time, to counter these inflationary challenges, RBI is probably going to raise interest rates as we have seen globally, more particularly in US. So generally, whenever interest rates are rising, we associate it with less spending and hence less growth. So what we are seeing is possibly because of the inflation and hence rising interest rates, there could be subdued growth. We've also seen that we have not yet fully come out of corona challenges. There are lots of areas which require government intervention and policy changes. There is a strain on Aam Aadmi. There is a strain on the poor person. The mid and micro small enterprises are facing a lot of challenge. They have not yet been moved up the curve as what they were pre-pandemic. There are some problems emanating in rural economy as well, despite favorable monsoons in last 2 3 years. We also see a perennial problem of low tax collections to GDP in India. Not everyone pays their taxes. We have huge subsidy bills. Uh, there are always political compulsions. There are always lots of issues which are not directly related to budget but still needs to be addressed in the budget. Government of India and Finance Minister also faces a problem where the revenues are limited but spends are much higher. So we need to see, she needs to understand how to increase the revenues and maybe spending of the revenues that she has earned in a much better possible way. So another challenge that she faces is that we have lots of public sector enterprises which need not be under government's control, and Government of India always fixes disinvestment targets which are never really met. And these disinvestment targets are a huge source of potentially huge source of revenue for government of India, yet they're not realized and adds to the fiscal deficit that we have. And for that, government has to do a lot of things which are not desirable. So, while there are so many challenges, we also have to see that and understand that not everything is bad. It seems that I have told you a lot of things which presents a rather bleak economy and things are not looking good. It's not the case. There are a lot of things which are heading in the right direction. Last year, tax collections for the first time since I have been reading were actually quite robust. Though our economy has the potential to do much, much better, but I think it was one first year wherein we did fairly well as far as the tax collections were concerned. It is estimated that we would be overall realizing revenues which are 4 lakh crores more than the estimates. There are, of course, there are gaps because there are certain things which will still not be completed. Maybe disinvestment targets are not met, and this 4 lakh crore might get reduced because of that, and there are increased subsidy bills and what more than what it was budgeted last year. Lot more spending which was not anticipated. Yet, net net, we should be as far as the last year projections were concerned, we might have higher collections, higher revenue collections this year. So we also witnessed a, a fairly robust growth in India. It is estimated that we might grow somewhere in the range of 9 to 9.5% GDP growth for the FY 21-22, which is uh, which is perhaps in line with the expectations and much better than the global growth GDP forecast. Of course, we can all say that we are just a $2.5 trillion economy. We are not a $20 trillion economy. US has also risen by 6.5% on a $20 trillion base, wherein we are growing at a 9.5% on a $2.5 trillion base. All those things are correct, not to be ignored. Yet we are one of the fastest growing economy in the world. We have a lot of peers and a lot of economies which are much smaller in size than our economy and yet not growing at a pace at which we are growing, and something that should be appreciated. The pre-pandemic levels are almost, in fact we are almost very close to those levels even if we average out. So things are not looking all that bad. We have embarked on perhaps one of the world's best vaccination drive. The number of people whom we have vaccinated in India has been extremely good, and that's possibly even in pandemic or an endemic stage of corona, we might still do fairly well because of the vaccination. So what can we expect from the budget? I don't think we are going to expect any big bang, out of the blue jolts or huge reforms being initiated this year. So I also think that Government of India, particularly Finance Minister, would be attempting to create a fine balance between growth and fiscal consolidation. Both of them are equally important. We need growth without, a huge amount of fiscal consolidation. Last year, Government of India endeavored on the growth trajectory and in many ways put aside the fact that, okay, we will fiscally take a lot more liberties and see what happens. We need to spend more so that economy, grows in a way which offsets the problems arising out of fiscal deficits. And and actually, if you look back and you'll realize that they were fairly successful in getting to that target, wherein India grew at a good pace, and the fiscal deficit numbers that everyone was thinking of, uh, we have not crossed those limits. In fact, we are well within those limits. So, do we keep the same trajectory going, wherein we just need to focus on growth and keep aside the fiscal part? I don't think so. We just need to be a lot more prudent this year, because there are other challenges like inflation and rising interest rate environment. And so possibly we just need to concentrate on growth, but just can't completely ignore the fiscal part. So, and I believe finance minister will maintain that fine balance, uh, giving prominence to growth over inflation and giving prominence to growth over fiscal deficits, but not ignoring those challenges. So it is very, very critical. And we have realized that higher GDP growth last year resulted in higher revenues, which offsetted the fiscal deficit by a percentage. So maybe a higher dose and focus on growth will continue to do the same thing, but with lot of prudence is on the fiscal side, not to completely just not to completely ignore the threat of fiscal part. Okay, so another thing that we just need to keep in mind is that increased spending on employment part, especially in the bottom of the pyramid, and maybe some incentives to the middle income group, uh, which has always been an honest tax paying uh, part of the middle income group, part of the population. So what we can always government can do is increase spend on higher employment generating sectors like real estate, like infrastructure, like textiles. So these are the sectors which provide huge opportunities for employment perspective, and hence, if there could be higher outlay for these sectors, this will generate more employment, and the people, especially in the bottom of the pyramid, uh, would feel a lot more relieved. Next is, I think, Government of India, as they always do, and possibly in this financial year, in the upcoming financial year, they can actually take more steps to reignite rural sector, as bulk of the Indian population stays in rural sector. More money in their hands would result in more consumption, and probably this would augur well for the Indian economy. We have started doing a little better on the manufacturing side. So if the thrust on the manufacturing continues the way it has been done in the last couple of years, I think we can do wonders here. And of course, any step on the manufacturing side, we have lagged so far behind as far as the global setup is concerned, and India being India for whatever reasons in terms of demographics and other things, we can do much better here. So any additional thrust on the manufacturing sector would be it can only be pluses, and any additional thrust would be a huge plus. Also, greater allocation for new age sectors. We have seen PLI schemes, and maybe PLI scheme in semiconductors, as government announced last year. These kind of initiatives will help Indian economy in a huge way. We also need to restart private sector capex. While capital expenditure is happening, but mostly it's the public capex. So what government needs to do is create an environment wherein public sector capital expenditure uh, is revived. So once it revives, the economy will perhaps fire on many cylinders, if not all the cylinders. Another important thing is that Government of India, we saw it last year, and Government of India needs to be more realistic around privatization. Every time we see that there prior to last year. Last year was still, you know, wherein we had realistic targets, and Government of India should continue with realistic targets around privatization, because in earlier years there were huge disinvestment targets and they were never met. Even this year, am uh, I'm a little iffy when I say that that privatization disinvestment targets would be met. And if it happens, we would have to really give a lot of credit to the LIC, upcoming LIC IPO, if it happens this year. So, but this a whole act of privatization, disinvestment, asset monetization can be a game changer. And if we can sort out the issues over here, even if it is 10% of the overall issues, and just like in what happened with Air India, and we are able to push some more um, companies into that disinvestment space, then I think we will do very, very well. So, first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that it's not an easy job. Secondly, set more realistic targets around it. Thirdly, get some of those companies into that disinvestment space and get more out of it. So that's what I have to say on the disinvestment and privatization. And Government of India created almost a 6 lakh crore of asset monetization pipeline, and hence, if we can even manage some, maybe 20-25% out of that in the upcoming financial year, I think we would do very, very well. So, from the corporate perspective, even and on the taxation front, so even if nothing much is done over there, Government of India has rationalized corporate tax in a big way earlier. So, if that happens, and government of we and there are no negative tax levies or changes in long-term capital gains tax, which I don't expect would happen. Uh, Everything remains the same. It would be good for corporate India. My only request to Finance Minister would be to perhaps abolish the buyback tax. So there is a lot of cash lying with the bigger corporates in India, and they don't want to part away with it because there are tax implications. So if, let's say, Government of India rationalizes these taxes, maybe reduce them quite a bit, or maybe a buyback tax is completely abolished, that would mean a lot more buybacks happening, and money in the hands of investors and public at large, and Government of India as well. Then in that case, there would be a lot more money in to spend by everyone and for everyone, and hence it could be a great fillip to the economy. So, as I said earlier, if also from a normal citizen perspective, if an honest middle class salaried maybe uh, is given some more tax relief, then in that case it would be fair to reward them, and maybe they might, the gap between the corporate taxation and individual taxation is quite high. That can be reduced, and some of the individuals are rewarded for, paying taxes, then it would be great for them. It does not mean a lot from overall perspective, but yes, it would also give a signal to the general public who does not pay taxes that we should become a part of the tax system. Um, Coming back to the stock markets, I really think that uh, we are on a right track. Of course, there won't be any big bang reforms, so it would be really foolhardy to expect the gains that we witnessed in last 2 years. However, we have lightened our positions in last 1 month or so. FIs have been selling in a big way. That's and our markets have stock markets have corrected by, if you look at the benchmark indices, by almost 9 to 10% from their top. So I think we are heading the budget. and which is as I said, is a trigger event, but not everything. People forget it over a period of time. The impact lasts for a few days, but uh, we are lighter in terms of our valuations, and hence it won't be really too negative even if it is bad. For the stock market there could be some correction if it's bad, and there could be since we are lighter, and if it is positive, the for the stock market, then it could move up in a big way, is what I feel. However, from a year long perspective, I don't think that it's going to be as rewarding for investors as it has been in last 2 years. So on themes, I am bullish on rural theme from the budget perspective, manufacturing, real estate, textiles, and continue to remain bullish on financial themes, which has I've already discussed in my earlier videos, wherein I think years of last 2 years of underperformance by the financial sector is actually resulting or will result in financial sector outperforming a lot of other sectors. So these are my hopes and wishes, and a gaze into the crystal ball and looking into the future post budget. And this is what I think would happen post budget. I hope I'm making sense, and I really hope if I'm making sense, then and you're able to see some benefits accruing to you because of the sense that I'm making. So position yourself accordingly. Think long term. Invest in quality stocks. Don't take huge large positions, but um, but go for the right kind of stocks, right kind of promoters, right kind of companies, quality, and don't ignore quality and make it count. Thank you. Happy investing, and may you have a great time. Enjoy yourself.